Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite old movies. It's a comedy, and it's one from an era where a lot of people might know a lot of other names, and these two might not necessarily come to mind. But that movie would be Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Now, before I get into this, we do need a little bit of background for people that don't know a lot about old comedy. And that's the thing is that Abbott and Costello, or Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, were a comedy duo who did a lot of stand-up, a lot of acts. They were the ones that came up with the Who's on First joke, and then they also perfected it. But they also went into movies as well, much like a lot of their other constituents from the time, where you had the Marx Brothers and the Three Stooges to an extent, even though they were mostly their own shorts, kind of preceded them and was also going on at around the same time, especially in Abbott and Costello's early days. But then by the time they got later on in their careers, and there were various things going on, they were sort of replaced by Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, and Lou Costello also passed away, I think, in the early 50s, if I remember correctly. But while they were really, really popular, which was really kind of like the late 30s all the way through most of the 40s, they had this deal with Universal, and they did all these comedy crossovers with various Universal monsters. They did, obviously, Frankenstein, which this should actually be Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman, but maybe it was too long of a title. They didn't think it would be catchy enough on a poster, so they just went with the biggest name possible. They also did Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man and Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, both of which are funny, but I still think this one takes the cake because you have more monsters and more jokes and more spoofs. And again, they make it very, very funny. And it's kind of a comedy routine that if you're not really familiar with that era of comedy, you might not necessarily get a lot of it, but it's the funny man, straight man duo. It's the two-man team, the Laurel and Hardy type of thing, where you have the short, fat, goofy guy who kind of gets into all these sort of hijinks and stuff like that, and he's very literal. He's not the brightest guy either, usually. And then you have the taller, skinnier guy who's the straight man, the guy that kind of, he's supposed to be the voice of reason, but he's also extremely literal. So they're both incredibly stupid, even though one probably knows what he's doing. At least the straight man usually knows what he's doing. But unfortunately, he's usually also kind of a dumbass. So it usually winds up, leveling itself out where, the straight man is telling the goofy man what to do. The straight man is telling the goofball what to do and that kind of thing. So if you're familiar with that type of comedy, you're definitely going to like this movie. And if you're a fan of the Universal Monsters, you're going to like this movie. Because the other thing is this wasn't just like a little crossover where they dressed up a couple of guys in some costumes. I think the only person they didn't get back for this was Boris Karloff as the monster, but it could have been that he was tied up in some other things at the time, or maybe he wasn't working with Universal at that point, or at least not as closely as he had in the past. But the point is that they got Bela Lugosi and Lon Chaney Jr. to come back and play Dracula and the Wolfman, respectively, in this. And that's what really makes it funny, is because they're playing the same characters. They're supposed to be acting the same. And for basically almost the entirety of the film, they don't really break character. They stay very serious to what their characters are supposed to be. And then you've mishmashed that odd sense of seriousness with these two goofballs that are telling, mile-a-minute jokes and stuff like that and doing this comedy routine. And if somehow it works. It works because you can make the Universal monsters look very goofy if you paint them in the correct light. And I think that's why a lot of those movies back then worked with audiences, is because, yeah, you can go in and see a movie like Frankenstein and be terrified, but you change around the music and the camera angles and you add in a few, some sound effects or some goofy stuff here and there, and you have a comedy. And you can still have the cast sort of playing the same characters too. So that's kind of what it is, and that's why I really love it, is because it's such a contrast to those other Universal monster films. Again, this is a film that's 60 years old, so I'm not really giving away any plot points here at this point that people shouldn't already know. Or I shouldn't say that, because a lot of people don't really know a lot about older movies, especially these days. But at the same time, It's a funny film. It has really good jokes. There's a lot of quotable lines in there. Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi and whoever the guy is that they actually had come in and play Frankenstein. I don't actually remember who the actor's name is. All of them do bang up jobs. The plot line of the movie is a little bit goofy. It's kind of just to get Abbott and Costello into the movie. But the thing is, with a movie like this, you don't really need an overly complicated plot. You just need to be able to get these two guys in there so they can do their routines and they can play off of each other and they can play off of these various monsters. And again, even the special effects and stuff in the film are not bad either because, again, it's Universal doing this and they're bringing over a lot of the same, what appears to be a lot of the same makeup talent from those monster films and various other ones that would come after. Now, this was, if I remember correctly, this was the first of the Abbott and Costello monster crossovers. I think after this was Invisible Man the following year, and then after that was The Mummy. But, like I said, I've always thought this one is superior because it has more monsters, it has more recognizable faces. Abbott and Costello are both hilarious in this. They were at the prime of their careers when this was made, so you're getting you're getting maximum effort out of both of them, and it shows. Again, both of them had done their act for so many years that they play so well off of each other. And the physical comedy in this is the other thing, too, because it's slapstick. It's not, like I said, it's not just the mile-a-minute jokes. It's also the slapstick comedy, which, you attribute maybe a bit more to the Marx Brothers and the Stooges, but at the same time, they both... Abbott and Costello used the same types of techniques. Maybe not to the extremes of the Three Stooges one. I don't think I ever remember Abbott dragging a saw across Costello's head. But regardless of that, they do use some of those same tricks. Like there's a scene in the movie where a guy throws Lou Costello into this changing screen at this costume party, and then Abbott just kind of looks at him. He says, "I bet you won't do that again." And then he picks him right back up and he does the exact same thing again. Just throws Costello into this changing screen, and it's so funny and it's so goofy. But he is throwing him into a screen. It is slapstick. But again, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the movie. And again, the Three Stooges did a lot of the same stuff where they had that very good balance with snappy dialogue and jokes, as well as the actual physical comedy. And even at the beginning of it, Abbott and Costello actually steal a couple of different. They steal one gag from the Stooges that I'm aware of, although I don't know if I'm pretty sure the Stooges did it before them. Was the giant box gag, which they do at the beginning of the movie. But if you're familiar with that era in humor, you're going to be able to draw comparisons between other things that you've seen. Now, whether that preceded those things or whether it was well after is up in the air, depending on what you're looking at. But it's still funny because you still have funny people doing it, and they know how to deliver it, and they know how to time it. But like I said, that's just kind of my opinion on that movie. It's one of my favorite comedies. It's probably my favorite Abbott and Costello film. But it's also one of my favorite comedies of that time because it is so goofy, and I do like the slapstick elements. But I want to know what you think. Do you know who Abbott and Costello are? Do you like them? Do you not like them? What's your favorite movie with them? Or what's your favorite comedy skit? Put your thoughts in the comments below. As usual, I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications. Hit the like button. Subscribe. And remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?